If you've pulled into a dealership lately and felt that weird silence, too many bikes, you're not imagining it. This is what happens when deliveries keep coming after demand cools. Orders were placed months ago, and the pipeline doesn't stop on command. So the lot fills, units get hidden off-site, and the store starts playing defense. Fewer prices posted, more call for details, more deals built around monthly payment instead of out-the-door truth. The question isn't whether discounts happen. The question is who takes the first hit when the store needs oxygen. Stay with me, because once the clearance wave starts, the market reprices fast, and if you don't pay attention, you get ripped off. The contradiction riders can see. Harley can call it normalizing. Dealers can call it seasonal. Out on the lot, it looks like something else. You pull in on a Saturday, and the front row is full, the side row is full, and the back corner is suddenly packed. Covers sit on bikes that should be rotating, not hibernating. Seats look sun-dulled. A few tires show that faint, squared-off contact patch you only get from sitting. A showroom can be staged. The backlot tells the truth. You don't need a spreadsheet to feel the clash. The message says demand is fine. The pavement says movement is not. You'll notice battery tenders draped like hospital lines. You'll notice the same unit parked in the same spot week after week. A motorcycle doesn't have to be old to start looking tired. It only has to sit. One proof trick is simple. Look from above. Satellite views don't argue. They show overflow rows behind the building, side lots near the fence, and extra storage that used to be empty. It doesn't mean every dealer is drowning. It means enough of them are loaded that slow season stops sounding honest. Even the staff behavior changes, more shuffling, more rearranging for photos, more bikes pushed out of sight before the weekend rush to keep it looking calm. Look closer, the counting game starts tonight. What counts as dealer inventory? This is where the language does heavy lifting. Dealer inventory can mean the bikes under showroom lights. It can mean only what's on the main lot, ready for a test ride. That's the clean number, the one that feels controlled. Real inventory is messier. Units get parked off-site. Some sit in overflow storage. Others are already assigned to a dealer, invoiced, and moving through distribution, even if you can't see them yet. Paper counts don't move metal or free space. That's why you can hear corporate talk about aligning retail and wholesale going into 2026, and still drive past a fence line packed tight. Two statements can live together because they describe different boxes. Reported inventory is one box. All in inventory is the whole pile. What's visible, what's hidden, what's inbound, and what's staged. Dealers have reasons to keep some of it out of sight. A crowded front lot can make buyers wait. It can also make a dealership look weak, so units get shifted to rented space, tucked behind buildings, or held in a warehouse bay until the dealer decides which ones deserve prime spots. None of that changes the fact that the bikes exist, and someone is responsible for them. Track that responsibility, and the next truth appears. Once a unit is invoiced, the clock starts. If this breakdown is useful, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Also, tell me what you're seeing at your local Harley dealer-packed lots, quiet deals, or normal traffic, because real rider reports help verify the picture. The floor plan clock. Most big dealers don't buy rows of touring bikes with cash. They use floor plan financing. Picture a revolving line that lets a dealer stock inventory, then pay it down as units sell. It works when bikes move. It turns brutal when bikes stall, because time is not neutral. Time charges rent. Here's a simple example. Put a $20,000 motorcycle on a floor plan line at 9% interest. Let it sit for 12 months. Interest alone is roughly $1,800 that has to be covered from somewhere. That's before detailing, battery maintenance, or staff hours spent rolling bikes around like furniture. That's why you see tenders on bikes that should be started weekly. That's why tires can develop flat spots, even when the odometer reads 0. It's also why the mood changes near month's end. A dealer under floor plan pressure doesn't just want to sell. He needs to stop bleeding. That pressure reshapes trade numbers, pushes bundles, and makes today feel heavier than it should. The street can look calm while the back office sweats. Banks also want curtailments. After a set period, the dealer must pay a chunk of principal. Miss that, and credit tightens. Suddenly, every unsold bike threatens the operation. Keep following the clock, and you'll see what keeps feeding it. The pipeline, planning to keep. Your bike longer? Open the description for the gear and accessories that actually pay off over time. Pipeline lag. Bikes arrive after demand changes. Motorcycles don't appear on lots the moment riders feel confident. They arrive on a schedule made months earlier. Dealers place orders, factories plan runs, parts get allocated, and shipments roll out on momentum. When the market turns, it doesn't flip that pipeline off overnight. Reality has to travel through paperwork first. Quietly. That lag creates the strangest moment in any cycle. Retail slows, but deliveries keep coming. A dealership can be trying to thin stock, while trucks still unload units that were locked in under earlier forecasts. The plan was made when foot traffic was higher and money felt cheaper. Then the calendar changed. Costs rose. Buyers hesitated. The pipeline kept moving anyway. This is why adjustments can be real and still feel invisible. If you're staring at a lot packed with bikes, you're often staring at decisions made a year ago. Staff time shifts from selling to shuffling. Service space becomes storage. The dealer starts choosing which bikes get attention and which get hidden behind the building. When that happens, the public hears slow season. The rider feels something else. Fewer people walking in, more approvals falling through, and fewer buyers willing to pay full price for bikes that have been waiting for months longer than they have. That's the hard part. Taking shape, fewer buyers show up at the same time. Replacement rate collapse. Harley didn't wake up one morning and lose riders. The base didn't vanish. It aged, thinned, and changed shape. The long-haul crowd that used to buy a touring bike every few years is stepping back for normal reasons. Knees, balance, vision at night, and the simple math of how much a heavy machine asks from you at 70. Plenty still ride. Plenty still love it. The issue is replacement. The line behind them is shorter. You can see it at breakfast stops and dealership parking lots. More gray beards, fewer first-time touring buyers. More last bike I'll ever own conversations. A rider sells a Road King because his shoulder won't hold it at a stoplight anymore, and that bike doesn't disappear. It goes to the used market, and the new bike buyer that would normally replace him is not arriving in equal numbers. The culture stays loud, yet the pipeline of buyers stays quiet. That's what replacement rate means in real life. Riders exit faster than new long-distance buyers enter. It isn't a judgment. It's a demographic clock that no marketing campaign can bully. When the pool shrinks, everything downstream tightens. Fewer trade-ins that turn into new sales. Fewer couples upgrading together. Fewer buyers walking in ready to sign the same day. Dealers feel it before corporate does. Hold that thought, because demographics only light the fuse. The monthly payment is what detonates it. Payment shock. The modern barrier isn't desire. It's a number on a screen. A touring bike can still feel perfect. Wind protection, big saddle, luggage for a week, and that familiar heartbeat under you. Then the financing quote lands, and the whole mood changes. For a lot of riders, the question is no longer, do I want it? It's, do I want that payment every month? The answer gets harder when everything else costs more. Run one example. Take a motorcycle, priced around $30,000 out the door. Finance it for 60 months at roughly 8%. You're staring at a payment that can live in the $500 to $600 range before insurance, maintenance, and the fuel you burn on a real trip. That's not a casual decision. That's a household line item. This is why Harley has been talking publicly about aligning wholesale shipments with retail demand going into 2026, not chasing expansion at any cost. When retail demand softens, shipping more bikes doesn't create buyers. It creates pressure. The company can guide shipments into the same neighborhood and still feel the squeeze, because the squeeze lives at the buyer level. Approvals, down payments, and the willingness to add another bill. Riders aren't confused. They're cautious. Keep following the payment, because when it feels too heavy, riders don't quit. They start shopping sideways. The used Harley trap. The best deals compete with new. A strong used market sounds healthy until you realize what it competes with. Late model touring bikes are the perfect substitute. They're already broken in. They've already taken the first hit. Many are owned by careful riders who kept service records, stored the bike right, and added the parts you were going to buy anyway. That means the buyer walking in for new is staring at a second option that feels smarter. Picture the comparison a practical rider makes. A used touring bike with low miles, a fresh service, upgraded seat, better windshield, and luggage already dialed can land thousands below new while feeling ready to cross states tomorrow. It's adult-owned, serviced, and set up. No waiting for parts. No, we'll schedule installation. You throw a bag on it and go. This isn't about bargain hunters only. It's about value. The moment a rider sees a clean used bike that checks the comfort boxes, the new bike pitch has to justify the difference with something real. If it can't, the sale slides into maybe later, and maybe later kills new inventory. It also teaches shoppers to hunt, not commit. Stay with the value lens, because the buyer who would have bought new often walks out comparing options far beyond one brand. The value war. For a first-time big twin buyer, heritage is interesting, but ownership is decisive. They ask simple questions. How much is it out the door? How long until the first service slot? What does a set of tires cost? How does it handle at parking lot speed? How does it feel after 300 miles? If the answers don't line up, they walk quietly, without drama. They also talk. Rivals have gotten sharper at selling the whole package. Comfort, reliability, reputation, dealer treatment, and pricing that feels sane. That doesn't mean anyone lost their soul. It means the shopping experience moved from posters and folklore to spreadsheets and test rides. If a competing touring bike offers comparable comfort for less out the door, a new buyer doesn't feel like a traitor. He feels like an adult making a purchase. Even loyal riders are not immune. When a buyer watches friends get fast service, fair trade numbers, and a clean deal process elsewhere, the old assumption that the badge alone closes the sale stops working. The market becomes a value war, and value wars punish anyone who relies on tradition to cover gaps in cost and convenience. When that happens, the showroom has to change its tactics. That shift feeds directly into dealership behavior, because when buyers hesitate, the deal itself gets rebuilt. The deal gets rewritten. The truth shows up in the paperwork first. When foot traffic slows, the sticker stops being the battle. The battle becomes the structure of the deal. You see it in package pricing that wraps bars, pipes, and a seat into one number. You see it in dock fees that grow teeth. You see it in a trade-in figure that feels light, paired with a promise to make it up on the back end. None of it is illegal by itself. It's pressure showing through the seams. A stressed dealership leans harder on high-margin lanes. Service becomes the profit engine, not the side business. The pitch shifts toward prepaid maintenance, extended coverage, and install labor, because those lines keep the lights on when new bikes aren't moving. Even the calendar becomes a tool. You'll hear today-only offers that expire at closing, not because the deal is magical, but because the store is trying to hit a monthly target before interest and overhead take another bite. Here's the tell. When the salesperson keeps circling your monthly payment instead of your out-the-door price, the store is managing risk. It's managing approval odds, trade exposure, and accessory margin all at once. The deal is being rebuilt to survive the market, not to celebrate the bike. Keep that in mind, because the real price can't be shouted. A quieter price leads to a quieter kind of selling. If you want straight answers without the corporate spin, subscribe now. The next video dives deeper into how dealers quietly restructure pricing and approvals when inventory stacks up, and what that means for your trade value, your timing, and your leverage. Brand control versus dealer survival. Walk the same lot, and you'll notice something strange. Fewer big discount signs, fewer loud ads, more call for details. That's not always because deals don't exist. It's because the brand wants the product to feel premium, even when the store needs movement. Dealers can be allowed to negotiate, yet discouraged from advertising the bargain. So the price goes quiet, and the buyer is forced into a private conversation. That silence changes behavior. A shopper who would have clicked an advertised sale never shows up. Instead, only the determined riders walk in, and negotiations get longer, more personal, and more exhausting. You start seeing soft incentives, accessory credits, service coupons, manager specials, and trade bumps that only appear after a long sit-down. The public message stays clean. The back office gets messy. You can feel it in the tone. The staff stops talking like a brand ambassador and starts talking like a survivalist. They'll ask what you ride, what you owe, what you can put down, and how fast you can decide. Meanwhile, the lot stays full, and the bikes keep aging in plain sight. Time doesn't just pass. It reshapes the way buyers value new, and that's where the label starts to matter. It also fuels rumor, because silence invites stories, and stories travel faster than official statements. Leftover stigma. A motorcycle can be untouched and still feel dated. The moment a calendar flips, buyers start looking at last year's unit like bread that sat on the counter overnight. They call it a leftover, and the word carries weight. It signals, fairly or not, that someone else passed. It signals that the next buyer deserves a better deal. It signals that resale might be softer, because the model year is already behind the moment you sign. Touring buyers are especially sensitive to this. They want the current trim, the current look, the current dash layout, the current paint options. They also want to know their machine will hold value when they decide to change seats, change bars, or change the whole setup. When a dealer has a row of last year bikes, the buyer starts asking why. Not why this bike, but why this many. The question isn't mechanical, it's market psychology. Dealers try to fight that feeling with freshness theater, a detail, job, a full tank, a new battery, a promise that it's the same bike. Sometimes it is. The perception still bites. Once buyers learn that old new units exist, they begin to wait for them on purpose, and that shifts the whole market into a pricing rhythm that arrives in waves. Even riders pause when the year badge feels behind. Clearance wave psychology. When enough leftovers stack up, the market learns a lesson it never forgets. Waiting pays. A rider hears a buddy got a better deal 3 weeks later, and he pauses. Another rider sees a dealer quietly sweeten terms at month's end, and he waits for the pattern. Soon, buyers stop shopping for the right bike and start shopping for the right moment. That change alone can freeze demand even when the desire is real. Here's how the freeze happens. A store makes a deep move to clear space. Word spreads fast in rider circles. Suddenly, every serious buyer expects the same deal, and anyone who doesn't get it feels played, so they hold off. Sales slow. Inventory ages further. The next round has to be better to restart motion. A clearance wave becomes a habit, and habits are hard to break. The damage isn't only to new bike numbers. It bleeds into trade values, private sale expectations, and even service traffic. Riders delay upgrades, delay accessories, delay big maintenance because they're uncertain where the market is headed. The psychological shift turns the bike from a dream into a timing game. Once that timing game spreads, it follows you into ownership, not just buying. For touring riders, that hesitation can mean another season on worn tires and tired shocks, waiting for a better moment. Corporate reset signals. Corporate doesn't talk like a dealer, it talks like a boardroom. Yet the message has been consistent lately. Match wholesale shipments to what retail demand can actually absorb, rebuild confidence inside the dealer network, and stabilize the business going into 2026. That language sounds harmless until you translate it. It means fewer surprises, fewer forced bets, and fewer heroic speeches about growth while riders hesitate. It also means belt tightening where you don't see it, staffing, incentives, and which projects get attention. In public outlooks, the company keeps returning to alignment and stability, because misalignment is what creates chaos. When wholesale runs ahead of retail, dealers take the heat. Then riders feel the aftershocks in trade numbers, parts availability, and the tone of the sales floor. When Harley says it wants discipline, it's admitting the last cycle got loose. Not morally loose, commercially loose. A brand built on control cannot afford to look out of control, especially when riders are watching value, questioning timing, and comparing notes. A reset also changes priorities. You see it in quieter launches, tighter dealer communications, and more focus on execution than slogans. It is less about chasing headlines and more about protecting the machine behind the badge. Pivot. The reset doesn't land on headlines first. It lands where you maintain your bike today. The service squeeze. When dealerships get pressured, the service department becomes both lifeline and bottleneck. Techs are hard to hire, harder to keep, and expensive to replace. If a store trims staff or loses a veteran technician, the calendar backs up fast. Suddenly, a tire change takes 2 weeks. A fork seal job becomes end of the month. A simple diagnostic check turns into a drop-off appointment that feels like leaving your bike at an airport. Touring riders feel that pain more than anyone because long miles punish small problems, and small problems turn into big ones on the shoulder. Parts delays add fuel. A sensor, a gasket set, a specific touring tire size, any missing item can stall a repair. Meanwhile, labor rates creep, not because a dealer hates riders, but because overhead keeps climbing while the number of available hours stays tight. If consolidation hits and weaker stores close, the remaining service bays inherit work from a region, and you lose same weak fixes. That means more planning before trips, more stress on the road, and more riders doing triage in the garage to keep rolling. Touring culture depends on confidence. When service gets slower, riders ride less, postpone upgrades, and stretch maintenance intervals they shouldn't. Watch that service calendar, because the next choke point shows up in the lender's office. The credit gate. Credit is the silent bouncer at the door. When lenders tighten, the first people to get turned away aren't the loud dreamers. They're ordinary riders with ordinary histories who used to qualify without drama. A higher required down payment, a shorter term, or one missed payment years ago can flip an approval to a denial. That changes who can buy, and it changes how fast a market can rebound, because the buyer pool is filtered before the test ride even happens. Dealers respond by steering deals toward what closes: stronger credit profiles, larger cash down, or co-signers. Some riders get nudged toward different trims or different deal structures, not because they want change, but because the bank wants less risk. Others delay buying entirely and keep their current touring bike longer, choosing maintenance over replacement. That extends the life of older machines, but it also concentrates resale demand into a smaller group of cash buyers and highly qualified borrowers. The ripple is cultural too. Fewer approvals means fewer new riders joining group trips, fewer couples upgrading together, and more people watching from the sidelines. More denials also mean fewer trade cycles, which quietly drains dealer energy and event culture. That's fewer riders showing up to buy parts. Once credit becomes stricter, the brand story must match the buyer's reality. The identity conflict. Harley's strongest asset has never been a feature list. It has been meaning. Heritage, sound, pride, and the feeling that your machine is part of a long American line. The risk is that meaning can become a cover for decisions that don't serve the rider. When strategy leans too hard on premium positioning without delivering a premium ownership experience, riders feel the mismatch first, not as outrage, as hesitation. The bike may be beautiful, yet the ecosystem around it feels less welcoming, less flexible, and less built for the long-haul comfort culture that kept touring riders loyal. This isn't one bad year, it's a mismatch problem. The market is asking for disciplined value, dependable support, and machines that fit real bodies on real miles. Riders want a grand tourer that feels ready at dawn, stable in crosswinds, comfortable after 300 miles, and supported when something breaks far from home. The brand is trying to protect its crown while the ground shifts under it. If it listens, the reset can rebuild trust. If it doesn't, riders will keep doing what they already do when things stop adding up. Hold on to what works, maintain what's paid for, and tell the truth in the parking lot. Full circle, the message says, steady. The pavement tells you what's really happening every day in plain sight. Rows don't lie, and neither do quiet tactics. Covered bikes, shuffled tags, and service calendars booked solid. If you're buying, treat the lot like a weather map, not a showroom. Ask what's been sitting, what arrived months late, and what terms only exist in a back office conversation. If you're keeping yours, protect value with maintenance, receipts, and smart timing. Markets correct slowly, then all at once. The rider who watches early keeps control when everyone else is guessing before the wave hits. So here's the bottom line. When lots stay packed, the market doesn't cool politely, it corrects. And it hits trade values first. Treat every dealership visit like an inspection, not a celebration. Ask what's been sitting, what incentives are quiet, and what terms only show up in the back office. If you're buying, use the pressure. If you're holding, protect value with maintenance records and smart timing. Now, hit like if this saved you money, subscribe for the next breakdown, and comment with what you're seeing at your local dealer stacked rows or steady traffic.